Should be going out partying. We're still here doing something else. Where are we going today? So there is a product out in the market called thermal oak, and it looks like this. And they've got a couple products. There's thermal oak, and then there's also thermal pine. And as you can see, if you compare these to regular oak, like let's say this piece of oak, they're quite different. As you just in the basic color, this looks more like walnut than it does oak. Now, how they make this is from a company called Carbon Smart Wood, and they're taking red oak lumber. Typically, they're getting them from harvested trees that they're trying to repurpose. So a lot of that is urban lumber that they are finding in the area, and collecting the trees and then creating this thermally stable wood. And the idea behind this wood is that I think it's supposed to be more like yakisugi, or what's called shosugiban here in America. And what yakisugi is basically they are taking, it's a traditional style of Japanese processing of wood, usually using cedar, where they take the cedar and they basically burn it in order to create a layer, a protective layer that is insect resistant as well as weather resistant. And because it's actually charred, it is also fire resistant, which is really kind of, I have a sample somewhere here that, let me see if I can dig it out. Here's a piece of cedar that has the shosugiban or the yakisugi type of process to it. Now, yakisugi means, yaki means basically to grill or roast. Sugi is the word for the cedar. So yakisugi, roasted cedar, and that's what you do to it. You basically burn it, and it creates this protective layer, and then you can process it a little more, scrape it off or whatever, sand it down. But when you get down to this point, it just kind of, it provides some layer of protection, but not as much as this, from my understanding. I'm not really well versed in it, but that's kind of what little I know. Now, this thermal oak I think is taking on the properties of this. So look at this. We've got this yakisugi style cedar, and if I take this sample of thermal pine, there's a lot of similarities in color. Not the same color, but very similar in colors. So the idea behind this thermal oak and thermal pine is that they are now making these thermally stable woods that you can use in lieu of pressure treated, as well as instead of like Trex. You can use them in decking, and you can also use it as exterior cladding to protect your buildings against the weather. How they achieve this is they put these into high temperature kilns, about 190 degrees Celsius, and they heat the wood. Now, when we're taking kiln-dried woods, we're taking, let's say, like, for example, this is kiln-dried. This is a piece of acacia core from Hawaii that was processed by Hearn Hardwoods up in Oxford, Pennsylvania. They'll bring the log in, the big tree, they'll mill it down into dimensional lumber, and then they'll put it into their kilns that will then, well, they'll let it sit out for however many months, and then they'll put it in the kilns and reduce that moisture content from wherever it is, maybe 20, 30, 40% moisture content, all the way down to somewhere between 9 to 10 to 11, 12% moisture. Where this comes in is that they're taking that same piece of wood, and now they are putting it back into a high temperature kiln and lowering the moisture content to 2 to 3%. Essentially, they are roasting the coffee. So the first time that I was talking to the guys from Carbon Smart, and they were explaining to me their process, because my day job is in coffee, and I'm a coffee roaster, green buyer, importer, and all that, it hit me that I was like, oh, you're basically roasting the coffee, because what they do with this wood is essentially what we do with green coffee beans. We take this green coffee bean that's somewhere between 9 to 12% moisture content, we put it into a roaster, we roast it down to make roasted coffee, and that roasted coffee becomes, we drive the moisture content down to about 2 to 3%, which is essentially this. So I was really fascinated and intrigued by it. So I had this opportunity to buy a 12-foot long by 5.5-inch wide board that was, I think, 5/4. And I got a really great deal on it during one of their sales. So I thought, let's try it out to see how it works and how can we use it in fine woodworking. Because it's got this great color, right? It looks very much like walnut. Like if we look at this, if we look at this piece of walnut, this is black walnut. I mean, it's darker, but once you put a finish on it, it's going to be somewhat similar. So if we can get walnut looking results for maybe lower price, or maybe now we can use it outside and have, better stability in the weather, that might be something. So I took that piece of 12-foot by 5.5 inches and 5/4 lumber. I took it back here to the shop and I decided, let me make a chair out of it. Now I've been working on this chair, a musician chair, that was really the genesis of this chair that I've been working on was inspired by Mira Nakashima. Mira Nakashima made this chair called the Concordia chair that was designed for the Concordia chamber players of New Hope, Pennsylvania. And the idea of this chair is that it's a flat-seated chair that has a back that's not just a single piece back that will allow expressiveness for the musician, like a cellist or something. They will have range of movement, and without a sculpted seat, they're not kind of stuck in the seat to move around, perhaps pivot on their butts, or whatever they need to do to play music. So I really liked the way that chair looked, and I was like, let me copy that chair and play around with the idea. So I made this out of black walnuts. This is kind of it's not an exact replica of the Concordia chair. It takes a lot of cues from it. It's very inspired by it. There are some, straight legs here on it. Let me get the camera off here and I'll show you some more about it. But I really like this chair a lot. Let's see here, if I turn this around. So here's the chair. We've got this T-back seat. The whole back, it's three legs, so the whole back piece is just one piece that's just kind of sculpted around. And then we've got two front legs that are just like this, right? Very straight, very simple. And then I created this I followed kind of the pattern of the Concordia chair, this kind of like delta shape. And even took a little bit of liberty, finding a void and a crack and did some fills with some kind of butterflies here. These butterflies are modeled after the Babayin characters from the Filipino language, right? So there's a couple of those here. Mom, good evening to you. And we've got this other Babayin character that is actually hiding mistakes or just errors. And, that's the one thing about when you're making stuff. You're always like, oh, let me tell you where I screwed up so that I can tell you why it's not so good. But that's kind of the idea. So this is the chair. This is the Concordia chair. And I made this one first. However, the problem with this chair is that I made the legs very vertical, which means that while it's relatively stable, if you actually really tilt to the side, it can get a little bit tilty. So when I finally got to see a real Concordia chair while visiting the Nakashima studios in April, I got to see the angle and I got to see the real chair and how they really execute it. And it's very different. It's a lot thicker. It's a lot more beefy. It's a lot nicer. It's a lot nicer. Of course, it's a $5,000 chair. So this one, so on theirs, they had an angle to the legs. And so I was like, okay, I need to work on a second version of this. And that's where we're coming to now with the thermal oak. Oops. All right, so let me get back up here. So with the thermal oak, I decided, I got the thermal oak 5/4. So if you're not too familiar with 5/4, that means it's basically 1.25 inches in thickness. When you're buying dimensional lumber from a sawmill, you're talking in quarters, basically 1/4 inch at a time. So a 2/4, ½ inch, 3/4 of an inch, 4/4, 1 inch, 5/4, 1.25 inches, etc., etc., 6/4, 1.5 inches, 8/4, 2 inches, 12/4, 3 inches. So you kind of go like that if you're not too familiar. So, but this thermal pine is sold in 5/4 raw lumber, 12 feet long, 5.5 feet this way. And so I got one of those pieces and I decided, let me make one of these Concordia style chairs out of it. And so I used that to make it. And you know, it's a very interesting type of wood. Like I said, this wood is very dry because they've reduced the normal kiln dried wood such as this is about maybe 9-10% moisture. Thermal is reduced down to 2 to 3% moisture, so it's really, really dry, and it's roasted because they've roasted it, so that's why it gets the color. So it has these insect repelling or resistive as well as weather resisting properties that red oak wouldn't normally have, right? Red oak, if you leave it out, if it's normal, will decay quite fast compared to other hardwoods like white oak or teak or sapele or something like that. So it really changes the game for red oak. And since there's a lot of red oak in this area, it gives a lot of opportunity for repurposing wood, which is really a great thing. So I asked some friends that did a little bit of work with the thermal oak. I said, hey, you know, what's the best way? What do I need to think about when processing the wood? And they're like, well, it's very dry, so it's very brittle. You're going to get a lot of fine dust out of it. And just keep that in mind as you're working with it. So I made the chair. As you can see, I made the chair. And this time I tapered the legs, right? So you can see there's a taper here that is not present in the legs here. These are much more beefy, much less taper. I wanted to get a little more elegance out of my legs. And then I put a 10-degree angle on them, right? So you can see here, there's a 10-degree angle on the legs that is not on the original, right? This allows for greater stability for the chair. Like now when you're playing on the chair as a musician, there's very little chance of it. Like this gets, like I said, it gets a little bit tippy. This one does not, right? It's very, very stable. I also took the liberty of reducing the height of the back a little bit and doing a little more contouring with the stretcher, the back stretcher. And that's really nice because I had my niece come over who's a cellist and I said, hey, can you sit down in this chair, play some music, and let's see what you think about this version of the chair, my first version. And she gave me a lot of feedback that she liked a lot of aspects of it, but then there were some things that she was like, well, you know, the back evidently is not so important for a chamber player because when they're playing, they're not really leaning back on it. So they're a little bit more forward. They're playing, they're in the moment. The back only comes into play once they are past their movement, waiting for another movement or waiting for another piece to begin. Then they will sit back and relax, and that's when the back comes into play. Now, this particular height was based on my observations of the Concordia chair that Mira Nakashima originally made. And basically what I did is I looked at photos online, and on the Nakashima website, they give you dimensions. They say the seat height is 17.5 inches, and then I forgot, I think 23 or something like that for the, or maybe whatever the dimension. They give you some dimensions. And so I took those dimensions and I looked at the photos and I kind of used a ruler and I was kind of like, okay, so if this dimension is 17.5, then we can extrapolate that this dimension is whatever it might be. So I kind of worked at it that way and then created the templates based on freehand drawings, which is, you know, a little bit tricky. Well, whatever, if you want to do it, you just do it. So, but I wanted to make it a little more comfortable. So in the second one, the thermal oak one, I cut it down just a bit. So you can see here, that it's considerably shorter on the back, which actually really tucks into to the lower back, like right here, and it's really, really comfortable. It's much more comfortable than having it a little bit further up. Like it gets closer to the small of your back. I did make a third version that drops it maybe another inch. But on that one, I made the stretcher really tight, much more. Actually, this is one of the prototypes, but I actually made it tighter than this. So it's a little bit shorter, or shorter in length on the third version, which was too short. That actually kind of just digs into your spine and is very uncomfortable. It's like that's not even a good thing. So that was not in the right direction. Now the problem, so it's a little bit weird to work with, right? It's very dry, it's very brittle. Like if you drop it the wrong way, it'll like chip off. Like there's a part of the leg that chipped off on the edge. I dropped the whole chair one time and it cracked it right here. Now I'm using to do all this, to do the joinery, like from the stretcher to the top, I'm using the domino, the Festool domino, which uses loose tenons and mortises to create to the connection. It's a lot easier than, doing hand cut mortises and tenons, which, requires a better amount of skill than I really have been developing. So, and then now to assemble it, I did create basically kind of like this half lap kind of joint here for this, but I am using dominoes for the legs, which is kind of where I ran into some problems. And we're going to kind of work on that tonight a little bit. Now, when it came to the original chair, since the original chair was 90 degrees with the legs to the top, it's very easy to install the domino tenons and then clamp it all together. You just put the clamps on and it's perfectly fine. Now the problem on this one, where I started to change the angles, and I put 10-degree angles, these are 10-degree angles, is that now when I inserted the mortise, when I inserted the legs and I clamped them down, it's actually leveraging this way. So if you look at this particular leg, you can actually see a little gap. Right? Can you see the gap there? You could kind of see the gap. There's a gap right here because the leg is leveraging that way, and that kind of creates a problem. It's not seated and the glue is not touching as much as it could. Now I put this whole chair together and I used Boss Dog glue for the assembly, and I put Boss Dog walnut, or I think I used Boss Dog clear for the entire build. Joined these together. There's actually 3 pieces here, and then glued everything up. All the mortise and all the joints are using Boss Dog. Now the problem is that it failed completely. All the joints failed. Now that is not, and I know I just said that I use Boss Dog, like that's a big thing, and I wanted to use Boss Dog. I was up at WTB Woodworking back in April, and I met Bill for the very first time, and really great little shop there. And he had Boss Dog, and he was like, I said, "What is this Boss Dog?" And he's like, it's a newer like glue company that, they're trying to make nice products. And so I was like, "Oh, let me buy it." So I bought a whole spread of Boss Dog to give it a try. And this was really the first project I really was using it on, because I've been using Titebond 2 for most of the builds that I've been doing, which is fine, perfectly fine. But we're talking complete failure. Like all the joints became loose after about a week or so. I was on a trip, I came back and the whole thing was ready to come apart. Like you could feel the whole thing moving. And at first I thought maybe it's just the way that the legs are or something like that. Maybe it's a little bit, but really it was the joints coming loose. And why is this? Turns out that because the thermal oak is 2 to 3% moisture, it is so dry that it's very difficult for polyvinyl, is it PVA, polyvinyl acetate, the basic wood glues, to adhere to this wood. It just doesn't work. So I messaged Boss Dog. They didn't get back to me until a little bit later than I would have liked, only because they're a small company. But I also messaged Carbon Smart. I called up Carbon Smart. I was like, "Hey man," I talked to their guy there. I was like, "Hey man, what's going on with it?" He's like, "Oh yeah, it doesn't work with with PVA glue. It's too dry. It doesn't have enough adhesion. There's no way for it to really connect. And I was like, oh, okay. And so he said that, you need to use polyurethane glue, which is also known as Gorilla Glue. And Gorilla Glue, because it has this property of filling, it'll fill into the pores and all that and like really adhere. And so at that point, this joint failed because I tilted the chair and it hit the thing and it cracked this back here and, ripped it all apart. And then but this joint and this joint were loose. I mean, loose enough that you could just wiggle it and it popped out. Oh, I'm sorry, this joint and this joint were loose and I popped it out. Now, this particular joint here was not loose. Like, it never got loose during that period. And I was like, that's kind of weird. But I've been waiting so I repaired it by using the Gorilla Glue on these three joints to hold everything back together. And so far it's been working great. I've been using this chair by the campfire, outside, sitting around, just kind of playing music or whatever I want to do to really give it a try, and it's been working great. Until the other day, when finally, and I've just been waiting for this joint to fail so I could repair it. And finally the other day, about 2 days ago, you could start to feel the chair wobbly, getting a little bit wobbly again. And that was telling me that the joint was failing. And it was gonna be time to replace it. Now, another thing that's a bit of an issue with this that I'll tell you about, you can kind of see it a little bit here. So a little bit of a detail, it looks really dark. So when I finished the chair originally, I thought, let me see, what kind of finish should I put on it? Maybe I should put some kind of clear coat or something. I could just put it outside and let it just, do its thing. What I used on this chair, which I really, really like, is pure tung oil. And the pure tung oil really just develops great grain character over time. Like, as the weeks go by, it just gets more and more interesting. And it's like, oh, that is really gorgeous. So I decided to use it on the thermal oak, which I will never do again. I will not recommend for you to use like tung oil on the thermal oak because it's a disaster. It's a disaster. Basically, it turned it black and it never dried. Like this chair is dry. This chair in weeks went by and nothing dried. Like, it was always, you put your hand on it and you could feel that it was oily. It's basically so dry as a wood and so resistive to moisture that the tung oil just essentially sat on the surface. Now it looks like this again because I took the time to sand it all down. I brought 40 grit sandpaper and sanded everything down a couple times. And you start doing that, your sandpaper gets totally clogged and you got to change it all the time. It really is just a pain in the butt to work with. If you use thermal oak, don't put a finish on it. You don't really need a finish. But I wanted to do this. So yesterday I took this apart, the joint that was failing again, and I sanded it all down. I started at 40, 60, 80, 120. And I stopped at 120. And I do try to wipe it down, but no matter how much I wipe, there's still a lot of dustiness to it. Like, it's very dusty. It's a very, I find it to be somewhat of a frustrating wood to use for like furniture making. I don't know if I would ever use it again because it's just so strange. But I wanted to show this. Share this live stream with you because I think there's ways to explore it that could be kind of fun and maybe interesting. Okay, so let's have a look at the joint because it's time to fix it. Let me just get some things reset here. If you have questions about any of this, let me know. How do we do this? I'm going to move this down here. I've got the camera on a tripod, so I have to extend the legs and I think that's good. Yeah, maybe a little bit higher. Okay. Is that too wide? Oh, that's kind of angled. Okay, there we go. Better, better, better. Okay, so put down a little bit of a protective layer, and now I'll put the chair here. You can see. Okay, there we go. Now here's the joint. This is the joint that failed finally. This is the last joint for repair. And as you can see, this is the actual leg. And cut a 10-degree angle here, matching 10-degree angle here. That way it sits in a nice way to the yeah, you know what I'm saying. Now here's the problem. If I put it together, and this is actually a double mortise and tenon, so I got double tenons here, and it goes like this. All of this is made with a Festool domino. And if you're thinking about the Festool domino as using as a mortise and tenon, I do recommend it. It makes things a lot. It makes it. I was gonna say it makes it easier. It doesn't make it easier. It just makes it simpler in certain ways. But you know, in order to do it correctly and accurately, it takes a lot of understanding on how to use it. So it's not just one of these things you can just throw yourself at it and it doesn't take any effort at all. It does take a lot of effort to learn. Like I spent a lot of time, watching videos and trying different things to see if I could really figure it out. I mean, I spent a lot of time mucking up projects because I was trying to learn how to use it. So take your time with it. I mentioned in the last live stream that I used it in a lot of the shop projects that I built here, a lot of the carts that are around the shop. And that's because, I was able to muck up those joints and then repair them and learn how to use it. So I highly recommend that. Now, in order to get this joint to fit, like it's very dusty, like this is so dusty. In order to get the joint to work, I had to sand it, so we have to make sure that's nice and clean. But I sanded it down, and I left this area here where the joint's actually, where the glue's going to stick. I left that around 80. I didn't go past 80 on the joint itself, and on the surface where they mate. I didn't go past that. I left that, although it looks like there's some finish on there. It might not stick. I wonder if I need to maybe sand that some more. We might need to do a little bit of sanding in order to fix that. Let's go to 60. We'll do some 60 on that. Should scuff it up well. I'm using the Festool Rubin 2 paper, which is a paper that Festool designs specifically for wood. And, but they have all these formulations. I don't really understand all the differences between them. I just know that this one is really good for wood, but their blue one, which is the Granat, is also very good for wood, for all surfaces. Okay, so we've got this here. And as you can see, it's a little bit, you can see the black. So we want to get rid of a lot of that because that's the black is the finish. And that finish is going to occlude, it's going to prevent better adhesion. Okay, that's much better. Much, much better. So let's put this away. Okay, so one of the things, like I said earlier, was that the problem I've been having with these tapered or this angled leg is that when you clamp it down, it always wants to lean forward. It does, and then we lose our adhesion back here, right? So you can see on this, with just one tenon in there, it moves. That's kind of exaggerating the issue, but it's illustrating the issue. Now, the tenons are pretty far forward, so we got a lot of space back there. I much prefer to do this entire build without hardware. Like I'm kind of against hardware. Not for any particular reason, just more of an ego kind of thing. Like I'm like, oh, I don't want to do hardware. But I've been thinking more about it as I've been assembling these chairs, and I'm thinking, you know what? I think that, you know, without having to create, you know, technical jigs in order to hold it all together, and then figure out different geometries so that you can build the jig so you can clamp it so that it holds down, I think it's going to be okay just to screw it down. So I'm thinking that we're going to put a screw right here and screw it down for the glue up. But we have to create the screw for the... And in order to do that, oops, we're going to get our screw gun, or we're going to look for some screws. I got a bunch of screws here. And I wonder in this case, let us go, let me bring you a little bit closer so we can see the detail. I think that'll be nicer. Maybe right there should be good. Or maybe over here. Let's go over here. Whoops. How about like this, then. Okay, here is our joint, right? You can see the joint is here. Now we need to put a screw in here, so I'm thinking that we're going to drill in right here. Just kind of start in this way and then angle it and then drill down. But in order to create a nice little hole, I think we need to find the right bits. And I'm thinking that we need to maybe use this Forstner bit, which will give us a little bit of a hole to work with. This is a Forstner bit, 1.5 inches from Wood River. It might be too big. Is that too big? Maybe a little bit too big, but you know what? Let's just go for it. I'm using the Festool CXS12 drill because it's got really good controllability. So, okay, like we're gonna go here and then down. Once we locate them, I think we'll go down. Okay, let's try it. Now here's the thing, I'm just kind of flying by the seat of my pants on this right now. Just thinking that this is a good way to go. It could be completely wrong. Okay, I think, oh, that looks ugly. God, that's ugly. Now you can see all the dust we created. We're just gonna, all right, that has, now this is giving us a kind of a parallel surface to this here, right? So that's kind of a good thing. We can put this bit away. Now what we need is a little bit of a screw that will go down into now I don't need it to be very big because I just need it to seat the joint, right? So let me figure this out. What we need to do is to drill a hole that will take us, what do we want to do here? Let me find a bit that will work with this. Okay, now this is a Brad Point drill bit, Central Tech style. That's going to be, I think, slightly big for this screw, but we don't necessarily want this screw to screw into the channel that this makes. We want it to go past. We want it to screw down into the actual seat. So we're going to drill this first. Presuming that we've gone through it now. Have we? We have. Okay, so we've got a little bit there. Oh, that might be pretty tight in there. Okay, so we don't want to go through the chair. Well, we really can't go through the chair. Okay, that's good. We won't go any further. I don't even think we'll get that far down. Okay, now we've got it all set up. We've got it all set up so that we can have something that will hold the mortise and tenons in place. Now this tenon is really wedged in there. I'm not going to bother to pull it out because we don't really need to pull it out. But we will. Let me get some of the adhesive. Okay, here it is. We've got our Gorilla Glue. And one of the things about Gorilla Glue that you're supposed to do is that Gorilla Glue, the what's it called? Polyurethane glue is kind of activated by moisture. And there's such low moisture content, so I'm going to hit it with water to kind of give it a little bit of oomph to get it to go. Now, one of the things about this glue is that it's going to go on and it's going to look fairly, nondescript, but then it's going to foam up, and the foaming is where you get a little bit of a problem, only because it's harder to clean up. You can kind of see here on this joint here, I didn't do a very good job cleaning it up here. So we're going to have to be a little bit aware of that during this process. But let's, I'm just going to get some water. I don't want to wet the domino. The domino gets all kind of wonky, although the domino's covered. I did plane on this domino a bit to clean up with a block plane. Now, that's a lot of water, right? But I think that's going to be fine. Because, it needs it. Also, one of the problems with this glue is that it's very messy. Like, meaning that I hate to get it on my hands. Like that this and CA glue, I really dislike that. So I'm going to put some gloves on. And if my gloves get stuck, that's fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the glue in here. I'm going to put the glue here. Oh, goodness. It's always a lot of... This glue... I kind of don't like this glue because it's always like drying up on you. Just put a little bit, and I'm going to put it in the... shove it in the mortise. Then now I'm going to put a little bit of glue here. A little bit there, some here. Oh, crap. Some there. Then we're going to push this down. Now, I did spill some on the surface right there, so I need to clean that up. Try to clean that up. Now that's set. So now we're just going to get our screw set and drive it in. Oh, gosh, there it is. Disaster is waiting to happen at every moment in this project. Okay, so that doesn't work. God. Ah, really? You suck. All right, let's just... Now the problem with this, right, because it's an expanding glue, it will expand and then it will like come apart. So everything is just hosed on this now. Hosed, I tell you. Okay, get that out. Now, in order to try to prevent that from getting too hosed, and just a little, we want to keep the hosing to as minimum hosing as possible. Oh, good Lord. All right, this is just disaster now. Disaster, disaster, disaster. Let us grab a little bit of clamps to try to hold it in place. So this is what I mean by it's very, oh yeah, look at that. That is just, this is disaster. This is disaster. There's nothing good happening here. Nothing is good. Nothing good is happening now. Nothing good is happening. Everything is bad. Let's see if we can find a way to maybe somehow we can save this from total destruction. I don't know if we can, but we will try now. So I'm gonna, since we're trying to clamp it this way, sort of has it. Not really. Maybe over here better. Oh. Disaster, disaster, disaster. This is disaster. Well, maybe that'll work. That's not working. No. So torque down a little bit too much on that, and we're paying the penalty now. Hopefully, I'm hoping that as the polyurethane glue starts to expand, I am hoping that we can that will grab on to those additional pieces and make it stick. Now you might be able to see that it's coming out a little bit. So I'm going to cut this straw and try to pick up the foaminess that's coming out. And I don't want to touch it because it's yucky. So I'm just going to cut it, and if you want to pick up, clean up, squeeze out, this is a great way to do it. All right, that should give us something. All right. That is a disaster. That's what we trade in here. We trade in on disaster here for things to happen with our projects. If you have any questions, are there questions? Oh yeah. Oh, Mom says this is very interesting. Thanks, Mom. Thanks. But yeah, this is the chair, the Concordia inspired chair that Mira Nakashima originally designed. I'm working on, like, updates to it to make my own, like, kind of interpretation of this chair. And I've actually got the fourth version of it I'm working on. Actually, I'll bring you over here. The fourth version is going to be in walnut, and these are the pieces for it. Right, I've already got everything cut out. Right now I'm playing with two different sizes of backs. Right, these have to be shaped some more. Like, it's got the rough shape for it. There's a taper here, as you can see. Both of them have tapers. And then carve this out here for, this kind of where your back kind of sits in, right? And then, like on this chair, I think I did that in no, I didn't do that in this first one. This is very much like the Nakashima version. But on this chair, can't really see it too well, but maybe you can see it like this. You can see it here. There's a bit of it's angled here. That's what that really gives you nice contour for the back. This next one has a little bit of a lower back and all out of walnut. And then this one, I took the live edge of the walnut slab that I was using, and I'm going to incorporate that into the back of it so that it just maybe just a little detail that's, I don't know if it's going to be totally nice, but I'm just kind of playing with that idea, right? And then the tapered legs. So I've already cut the angles on the tapered legs here. So this is, there's some finishing work to do, like maybe some more, like a little bit of shape sanding here for the contour, because there's a little bit of, like, if I run my finger here, there's a little bit of an indentation there. So it could be a little bit smoother. And then we're going to, do the edging on it, right? Because as you can see over here, the edges, these are chamfer. These have a slight chamfer on them, like a 45-degree chamfer on the edge of these. But these, on this one though, on the original, it's just the edges are smoothed out. They're just took out the edges on that, so it's not. So there are different ways of doing it, and the idea is that, as you're playing with your projects, you can just, try different things to see whether or not you like them, right? It's not, there's nothing really sacrosanct in how you do it. Like, that's my kind of deal. I've got a couple boards here that I picked up from my sawmill today, Andrew. This is a piece of walnut that actually he gave to me because I said, I've got this Festool HL850 planer, hand planer, electric hand planer, that I got for use from a guy that does timber, and he was like, I'm selling it because it's got some issues with it. Like, it's not totally coplanar, and he was telling me about that, and I was like, okay, let me look at it, and I'll buy it anyway, and see if there's anything wrong with it. And I haven't really been able to duplicate the issue that he had. So I asked Andrew, I said, hey, do you have any extra, scraps that I could use to like work on? Because, if I use my regular wood, then I'm planing it all down, and that would be kind of waste. He's like, yeah, man, this is really kind of heavily cupped. So he's like, you can use that. I was like, awesome, thanks. And then this board here, this is I think it's like 10 foot. It's over 10 board feet of cherry, local cherry. All these are both local woods. I like dealing with this local store because a lot of the woods that he's using are really local, like from within the 2 to 5 mile radius of where we are at the moment, which I really like. And so I'm working on this idea for a lounge chair that will be kind of mid-century modern-ish. Let me get got my notebook here. I like to trying to keep things in a notebook so that I have reference for it. But this is the general plan for it, right? Kind of mid-century modern, style overall. My good friend Joe up in Connecticut, when I was up there staying at his house, he had a mid-century modern lounger in his living room, and I was like, oh, let me get my tape measure and angle angle finder and make some measurements. So I that I'm going to use. And I calculated out, and I don't know if I did the calculations correctly, but I took all the different lumbers that we figured. So basically, inch thick, the maximum height is going to be 2 inches on the pieces. So I think that I need 10 board feet of lumber. And I think this one cherry board should cover that. But we're going to find out. I've kind of got to lay it out. But the idea is that you're buying this board is actually 5/4, and if you remember our talk earlier, 5/4 really means inch and a half, 8 inch and a quarter, right? So 4/4, 5/4 is 4/4, so inch and a half. 4/4 makes an inch, right? And it's a little bit bowed or a little bit cupped. So how do you process this? Now I don't necessarily need the full width. And you can see it's rough sawn. Let me turn this around here. You can see it's rough sawn. The surface is rough on all sides. These are the marks that are left by the big bandsaw that it's used to cut the whole log down. But since it's cupped this way, like this, and here's the lower part, these two sides are higher, it's not really a big deal because eventually I'll probably end up cutting strips like this so that when it finally gets cut into the individual pieces, this cupping will not be very prominent, or it won't be as prominent as it is now. And then when you run it through the surfacing machines, and so basically what you're going to do is you're going to surface this down so that it's smooth, right? So as you can see, this is rough sawn, whereas this board here, this piece of walnut, is smooth. Let me put that over here. This is smooth because it's already been surfaced. I've already surfaced it on all four sides, all four sides. I did four sides. What's called surfaced on four sides is what they call S4S. S3S is 3 sides, blah, 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 so on and so forth. And you can do 2 sides, 1 side, whatever you want. And so I'll have to, run it through the machinery and then make it all smooth so that it can be finally cut down to the dimensions to match this drawing. Yeah, so that's kind of what we're working on here in the workshop at the moment. Repairing this chair leg, which has been an utter disaster. Like, we're still getting some, you can still see here, we're getting squeeze out from our, see, and it's already getting tacky. This is the problem with this glue. Like, and this is another reason why, like, as much as this thermal oak is interesting, the fact that you have to use this polyurethane glue, that really sucks because it's just such a pain in the butt to deal with. Clean it, got to do all this cleanup because it's really a pain to clean it later. Like, you got to scrape it and probably get in there with a chisel. Like, look at this thing. I probably will never use thermal oak again. Well, never say never, but I'm not going to be... To make furniture pieces, I don't think I'm going to be seeking it out necessarily. Although, the other side of it is that this is supposed to be very thermally stable and very weather resistant because of the heating of the wood. So if you're building furniture for outdoor use, this could be a good viable alternative for you to use instead of, let's say, teak. Teak's very expensive. White oak right now, since it's very in vogue, it's also quite pricey. This they sell by the linear foot, and it's not terribly cheap either, but it might be a good alternative for that. But there are some challenges. Some of the challenges are going to be that it's very dry, it's very brittle. The dust is very fine because it's very dry, so you want to make sure that every time you're working with it, you should be wearing good mask control. Definitely use NIOSH 100 masks, which I wasn't using today. Make sure you're using good extraction. I also have some filtration around the shop that isn't running because we're making this video. So over here I've got this big filter with MERV 13 filters in it, and then I also run this this near field filter. This has two different filters, like a pre-filter for this, for the bigger one, right? This is a MERV 11, MERV 7. Doesn't mean it's MERV 18, right? But, you know, those are just near field to just kind of help filter the air out and filter out particulates as it's coming closer. I had been working with something like this for a while, and then, you know, Festool has the new Sys Air, which is kind of a neat twist on that. Maybe similar, maybe better, maybe the same. I don't know. I haven't really figured that out yet. But I probably won't get that, or maybe I will. Who knows? Who knows? All right, so I guess that's it for today here on WoodShop Live. We've got our table, I'm sorry, we got our chair, our Concordia-ish chair that has been repaired. Hopefully it'll be a good repair. Now, this idea of putting hardware dismally failed on this. But I wonder, like, because if this was walnut, I'm suspecting that it'd be better, because walnut probably will not crack because it's not as brittle as this wood. So hopefully this will adhere to, oh, actually we can probably see right now if it's going to adhere or not. Yeah, I mean, it's the expansion of the glue has already happened in the cracks, so I think it's going to hold it enough. It won't be structural, but it will be maybe aesthetically pleasing, or maybe not as aesthetically ugly as though if I left it broken. So, all right, there it is. Go to your Friday night thing, because there's still daylight, so I can still do something for Friday night. So I hope you have a great one. I hope this gives you some insight into the thermal oak. Thermal oak is an interesting product that's on the market. And the nice thing about it is using reclaimed woods, reclaimed lumber from urban settings. Like I think Carbon Smart is based here in Baltimore, so they're using a lot of the urban woods that they're harvesting in Baltimore City. And instead of it just going to the landfill and being crushed up for nothing, they're trying to reutilize that and find better utility and use for it. So it's really a good mission for the wood. And if you can find if there's a way that you can use it, it might be worth your effort to explore it and give it a try. Now, don't put finish on it. Don't put like don't put tung oil like I did, because that's disaster waiting to happen. Don't use regular PVA glue, because that, again, to hold your joints with thermal oak, because that also is disaster waiting to happen. What else is there? Don't drop it in front. If you put in furniture, don't drop it. Be careful of chipping, because those are disasters that are waiting to happen. What other disasters are there? Make sure you wear your mask, because it creates a lot of fine dust. And make sure you wipe it down multiple times after you stand it up, because it just seems that no matter how much I'm wiping, and I still feel like there's little bits of like gritty, sandy stuff on here. All right, so I hope this helps. And back again, maybe next week with another WoodShop Live. So I hope you have a great one, and let me know what you're working on, if any interesting projects you're doing, whatever you're trying to figure out. Maybe we can find some answers for you. So hope you have a great one, and see you next time. Ooh.